I didn't want to leave the last video the way I did. I had to cut it off real quick. Had something come up, and I'm riding on an old back dirt road right now. Sure, I don't have my seatbelt on, so I don't want you to worry about me being thrown through the windshield. I'm gonna get into this more, but I may sound like I'm repeating myself, and I'm sorry, but you know what? I'm talking what's on my mind. So this miracle was such a monumental, I've used that word 1,000 times. I've been thinking of another one. Colossal, gigantic, enormous, it was so important, you know. It is the same as the Mount Sinai incident where he tells them, look, 3 days I'm coming. You tell those people to clean up, and they said, well, we'll do whatever he says. We'll do whatever he says, Moses. And the way that the Father showed up on that mountain, he tells him later, you know, chapter later or something, he says, the reason I showed up the way I did, with the fire, the glory, the trumpets sounding louder and louder, was so that the whole earth would believe that I have spoken to you. John chapter 11 is no different. The glory that was manifested that day with the raising of Lazarus from the dead was so in the face of the reality of what the people thought was real that day. The Father and the Son was showing up real reality, true reality, that Jesus is the resurrection and the life. There is a resurrection going to happen one day. Judgment Day is coming, and there'll be those who are raised to life, and there'll be those who are raised unto death. And that event exposed the unbelief to such a level that there was no way you could walk away from it and say, I still don't know. The purpose of that miracle was described in verse 4. When Jesus said, this sickness is not to end in death, but for the glory of God, so that the Son of God may be glorified by it, by this miracle. In other words, Lazarus getting sick, because Jesus could have ran from Bethabara. It would have just took him a day. He could have ran from Bethabara and got to Bethany. Or he could have just spoke a word. He's done that before, right? You've read the Gospels. Speak a word only, and I know that, you know, everything's going to turn out all right. You remember that? But he didn't. Matter of fact, when they told him that he was, you know, when he was talking to his disciples, he said, Lazarus is asleep and I'm going to go wake him up. And they said, well, good, if he's asleep, he'll get better. And he said, no, Lazarus is dead. And I'm glad for your sakes. Glad? This event happened out of the plan of God. He planned it and executed it. And you and I need to just go ahead and settle in our hearts that God is sovereign. And I know I used to subscribe to the idea that, and I didn't like the sovereignty of God thought, but it's simply the truth. God is sovereign, and everything is under His control. Remember the widows, the orphans, and the poor, and take everything I say with a grain of salt. Look into this stuff for yourself.